The entire crypto industry right now is under pressure and crackdown from the regulators.
In today's video, Michael Saylor, Executive Chairman of MicroStrategy, discusses Bitcoin ordinals, transaction costs, MicroStrategy's long-term vision, and the future of money.
In terms of how Bitcoin is being deployed as a store of value asset, are you where you thought we would be 2 years on?
Yeah, actually, if we look back to when MicroStrategy began this journey, which was around August of 2020, and we look at the performance of all major asset classes since that time period, Bitcoin's up about 140%. The S&P index is up maybe 25%. The NASDAQ is up in the teens, actually maybe even less. Gold is like a plus 1%. Silver's been down, it's lost money, and bonds have lost even more. So Bitcoin is the best performing asset since then. It is actually showing the promise of an inflation hedge and a store of value. It has achieved that kind of performance in a volatile fashion, but even on a Sharpe ratio basis, it's outperforming alternatives. And I guess the best alternative right now is really the S&P index, which requires that you take equity risk. The world wants a hard commodity money, but the second best commodity is gold, and it's just not standing up to Bitcoin at this point in time. And the weaker commodities like silver, soybeans, oil, timber, they just don't work, because when the price goes up, you can make more of it. And of course, if you can't use a commodity, you got to go to a security. And if you go to a security, you've got counterparty risk, because securities have issuers. And so Bitcoin is filling this void. It's the asset without an issuer. Right. It is not just a commodity, but a scarcity. It's capped. And I think that's why it's outperforming all these other assets over this time period.
And I believe after MicroStrategy, Marathon Digital Holdings has the highest Bitcoin ownership. Given everything you've just described, are you surprised that more public companies don't see it the way you do?
Well, I guess we've gone from MicroStrategy being the first to there being 24 or 24. So I think going from 0 before we got into the market to 24 right now shows some promise for something which is completely new in the history of the human race. It doesn't surprise me. The reason it's challenging is a couple of factors. One is the accounting. The accounting was indefinite and intangible, and if I had to boil that down, that's toxic. If I wanted you not to buy an asset, I would make it indefinite and intangible accounting, because what that means is you always have to write it down, but you can never write it up, which means that you will never, ever, ever have an investment gain on an asset with that kind of accounting. It had that accounting because it was a new, novel, scary, not understood thing that no one used. And so the accounting industry took the most conservative view they could take, and perhaps that was reasonable in the 2014 timeframe or 2017. We're moving toward fair value accounting right now, and I think the first milestone we'll have to get over is we'll have to go to fair value accounting before a publicly traded GAAP reporting company can reasonably get enthusiastic about large sums of this asset. I think the second thing holding it back is crypto confusion. A lot of people had a hard time distinguishing between Bitcoin and FTX and FTT token and Terra and Luna token, and is that a stable coin, and all these other crypto assets. That got to peak confusion about a year ago when all the crypto companies bought at all the Super Bowl ads.
Yeah.
And for the last 12 months, there's been this crackdown, meltdown rationalization where every single one of these wildcat crypto companies has been going bankrupt, and all of their air tokens have been crashing, and then everyone promoting the air tokens is getting sued for pumping unregistered securities. Now that's a very expensive, like multi-$100 billion educational lesson for the marketplace and the media. Until we actually get assured clear distance, some amount of distance from that crypto crackdown, I think that conservative CFOs will be a little bit careful there. I think that the silver lining there is Bitcoin's credibility has been enhanced in the past 12 to 24 months because all of the bankruptcies of the other crypto companies have illustrated economically why they are not assets without an issuer. If there was no issuer, there'd be no one to go bankrupt, right? So the bankruptcies have been demonstrative, and that has forced the regulators, both in the CFTC and the SEC and the like, to point out that Bitcoin is a commodity, and that has required millions, if not tens of millions of people to understand the difference or learn the difference between a commodity and a security. So Bitcoin's asset class, or its classification as a commodity, properly understood and broadly understood by the entire investment community, is kind of the second chasm we have to cross. The third chasm is the entire crypto industry right now is under pressure and crackdown from the regulators, and there's a lot of pressure on crypto exchanges, cryptocurrencies, crypto assets, securities. And until that's resolved and you see Bitcoin trading on regulated exchanges that have been endorsed by the SEC or by the regulators, I think there are a lot of conservative investors that will just stand off and wait. The way you'll know that happened is when the SEC approves a Bitcoin spot ETF. That's kind of an indicator that they've decided that they endorse the exchanges trading the asset. And they've never liked the fact that the asset Bitcoin is cross-collateralized and cross-traded with other crypto assets. The idea that Do Kwon could issue $60 billion of Luna and then issue $20 billion of UST and then buy $4 billion of Bitcoin backed by $60 billion of an Air token and then wash trade it right on an unregistered exchange without surveillance. That has been a bother. That has been really offensive for regulators. So when the crypto industry gets cleaned up and when the investing public is educated and when the accounting is normalized, I think you'll see more conservative CFOs start to look at this as an asset they can allocate to in size.
Is that necessarily a good thing, though, to have all of these spin-offs and derivatives of an asset like Bitcoin?
I think that the thing that compromises the integrity of Bitcoin now and in the past was the existence of the crypto exchanges and the crypto tokens that were actually trading Bitcoin. So it's FTX that compromised the integrity of Bitcoin because Sam Bankman-Fried took billions of dollars of Bitcoin under custody and then rehypothecated it and then sold it and then lost it, while it was conjoined with the trading of the FTT token, which he was manipulating via wash trading and insider trading. So the problem is Bitcoin being traded on exchanges or wrapped into securities that are unregistered, unregulated, offshore. And I think that the regulators are going to continue to pursue all of those securities. An unregistered security, an unregulated exchange, an uncontrolled financial instrument, those things are viewed as the problem that is impairing Bitcoin from it's impairing them from approving a Bitcoin spot ETF. If none of those things existed and you were a regulated company, an SEC 40 Act company, say, or SEC 33, but especially in this case, SEC 40 Act company in the US, and you wanted to buy Bitcoin spot and then offer an ETF, I think that would be acceptable to regulators because you're a regulated and transparent organization. The thing that threatens the integrity of the asset isn't the security per se, it's the lack of transparency around the security combined with the ability to engage in insider trading to manipulate the price of the security. So in that particular case, that means that publicly traded companies in the U.S., let's say a public company in the U.S. that holds timber rights doesn't threaten the price of timber. They're disclosing that the timber that they're trading, and timber is a commodity. A publicly traded company in the U.S. that discloses their ownership of Bitcoin isn't the problem. The problem is offshore, non-transparent, unregulated, wildcat banks, cross-trading, cross-collateralizing, and conjoining Bitcoin with 10,000 other crypto assets.
Is it a good thing to have all of these spin-offs, even if they're regulated, linked back to Bitcoin? Does it compromise the original mission of Bitcoin, which was a response to the 2008 financial crisis?
I suppose the Bitcoin purist would take the position you should only own Bitcoin and you should self-custody.
Are you not a Bitcoin purist?
I am a Bitcoin realist. I believe that if Bitcoin is going to be the solution for 8 billion people on the planet, then it's going to be inevitable that banks need Bitcoin and corporations need Bitcoin and governments need Bitcoin and cities and states need Bitcoin and nonprofit agencies need Bitcoin. And so at the end of the day, the city of New York is not going to allow the mayor to walk around with the Bitcoin, in personal custody. And it's not really practical for, the Defense Department of the United States of America to let one general have all the Bitcoin, right? So large institutions, churches, corporations, and the like, they're going to need an infrastructure of custodians and banks. And so I do think there will be a time when all the big banks will custody Bitcoin. I think, like, if you're a 3-year-old child, how are you going to self-custody Bitcoin? When you inherited the Bitcoin from your grandfather, how are you going to self-custody Bitcoin when you're 12 months old? And if you're 85 years old with Alzheimer's, you're not going to self-custody Bitcoin either. So I think that there are all sorts of groups of people that can't reasonably be expected to self-custody. And I think, when you have a family or a family trust and there are 47 people in the family, you're probably going to use a trust company that will manage the Bitcoin for you. And I think as long as there are corporations, Apple Computer is going to have Bitcoin, and Apple is a corporation, and they're not just going to give it to Tim Cook, right? In fact, they can't, right? So if you believe nation states will continue to exist, then you're going to have Bitcoin held by institutional sources. They're going to have a bank to hold it for them. And if you believe in the continuation of cities and corporations and distributed family units, and if you believe in insurance, when you buy an insurance policy and you back it with Bitcoin, the insurance company is going to have a very particular way, and they're not going to let the insurance salesperson hold the Bitcoin for you. And so how do you do it, right? So I think that Bitcoin is inevitably, it's going to permeate all of the traditional institutions in the world in different ways for different reasons: economic reasons, physical reasons, political reasons.
Coinbase is filing an amicus brief claiming that the SEC's regulatory chaos is by design, not happenstance. Is that what you think is going on? Is it by design?
I think the regulators are of the opinion that they don't want billions of dollars of U.S. currency to circulate in dark pools in such a way that they evade the controls of the banking system, the KYC, the AML controls. And they don't want to be used for sanctions evasion. And for that reason, stable coins are a problem for them, and I don't think they're going to change their view. I think they've also decided that many, if not most, of the crypto tokens are securities, and they're unregistered securities being manipulated by the issuer in an unethical fashion, and they don't have full disclosure, and therefore they're violating securities laws. And I think their opinion of those two things has strengthened in the past 12 months. I think the meltdown of FTX was a catalytic event that caused the regulators to decide that crypto exchanges, crypto securities, and cryptocurrencies that imitate the dollar are not really consistent with a stable world financial system, and they're going to take actions to shut that down everywhere in the world. I don't think anywhere in the world that's going to be tolerated. I think it's just a matter of time as to how long it'll take for that to be wound down.